Hey guys, this is E with Scrapbooking with Me, and I hope everyone had a very happy new year. As I told y'all in the last video, mine was a little bit, I guess, off, is all I could say. It was just a little struggle because of leaving 2022. Just kind of felt like I was leaving Whit behind because he passed away in September. But I made it through. I just needed to be by myself, so I didn't even go spend time with the kids or anything. The grandbabies come over and spent the night with me, but I didn't go over and spend any time with them. I just needed to be alone, do some praying and talking and thinking and all of that. But anyway, we are now ready to start on our Just Journal January. Now, these videos are going to be a little bit slower paced. I'm not going to be cutting out anything unless I just make a real big flub up, and I might cut that out. But I want you guys, especially the new people to junk journaling and to any kind of journaling, I want you to be able to see every step by step. I have not pre-cut anything. I will be doing all of that on camera with you. So I'll show you the things that I pulled out in just a minute, but I wanted you to go on over and download. This is your number one freebie. This is the one for this week. And it's some tags, different sizes, and then there are some journaling cards in different sizes and shapes, that kind of thing. So print some of these out. Now we did this in a neutral sort of color so that you would be able to add any of your colors on here that you want. That way, no matter what cover you have, whether it be bright pinks, bright reds, bright whatever, you can still adapt these to go with your cover and to match up with your journals, because you could put flowers on them, things like that. And we'll get into all of that when we start decorating. But you can go over and print this out and go ahead and cut yours out if you want. I've got to cut mine out tonight, but I knew I wouldn't be ready for them today, so I kind of left it. Now, any of you that are going to participate in this, and as I told you, if you are a subscriber to mine and Melina's, this is a collab with Melina. If you are a subscriber to mine and Melina's channel, YouTube channel, then, and you're going to participate in this, we are giving away 2 gifts during the month. We're going to give away one in the middle of January and then one at the end of January. And all you have to do is use this hashtag, Just Journal January. And I wrote that in because I forgot to put it in here. But just use that hashtag wherever you post anything, whether you post it on Instagram, your Facebook page, our Facebook group, wherever you post it. Just use that hashtag and we'll be able to pull it up. Now, I had some that said, I don't do Facebook, so how can I do that? Well, if you don't do Facebook and you don't do Instagram, you don't do any of the social medias, then you can always put your information below the video. I think it will let you insert a hashtag, I do believe. And if you do and do that, just say, you know, I've got my journal cover completed. I wanted to see photos of everything that you do, but I know that there's some that just can't do that. Now, you can also email your photos to me if you want to. That email is always below. You can just email it to me, and in the description or up in the little caption, put hashtag Just Journal January up there. So, that being said, that will get you entered in the giveaways. So we'll lay that aside. Now, this was the instructions, and if you haven't printed off your instructions, they did come out in a newsletter, but if you haven't printed off your instructions, the link will be below where you can go over and print those off. It tells you what we're going to do each week and what you're going to need, or what you're, you know, some of the things that you're going to need. I mean, you don't have to have everything that I have on the list. But, and if you don't have a printer, don't feel bad that you can't do this. You still can. Just use what you have at home. I know everybody's got a little stash at home, so just use what you have at home. It does not have to be with the items that we are giving you. That is just a freebie that we wanted to give you to go along with. Okay, so week 1, we're going to do the journal cover. Now, this can be fabric, it can be paper, it can be whatever, leather, whatever you want it to be, whatever you have in your stash. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do your cover. Well, to stitch your cover, I'll put it that way. I'm going to do my cover using a bubble mailer. And this is just a scrap bubble mailer that I got from someone, and let me make sure. Okay, it does have their address on it, so I'm just going to peel that off real quick. This is just a one that I got through the mail. I got some things through the mail in this, and I save it. I save all of these because they're really good to use on the inside of your covers. They just make that crinkly feeling. If you don't have bubble mailers, don't worry about it. Use what you have. Use cardstock. Use paper bags. Use whatever you have. Just get imaginative and use what's in your stash. I like the bubble mailers, like I said, because it gives it that texture and it gives it just enough thickness that your cover doesn't flop. You don't want to put just some thin material together front and back, because it's just, your cover's going to flop if you do that. So you're going to need a little bit of strength on the inside of that cover. So if you don't have bubble mailers, grab some paper bags and cut some paper bags the size and put those in there. Or grab, let me think, what else? I have seen people put the plastic grocery bags, lay them out and put those in there. Just something to give it some extra texture and extra thickness. All right, so the items that you'll need, or that I'm going to use and you probably will need, is your cover, your material, or your paper. And like I said, you can use either one. A bubble mailer or something to put on the inside of your cover. Now, these pieces need to be at least 9 by 12. Because, you know, our journal is going to be, like when we finish it, the cover journal is going to be a 6 by 8.5 or 6 by 9. So just make sure that your pieces are like 9 inches by 12 inches, something like that. You'll need your freebie or, you know, something from your stash. You won't need that this week. That's just coming up. But I did go ahead and give the freebies for this week so that you could go ahead and get them cut out and do whatever you need to do with them. Now, you'll either need your sewing machine if you're planning on sewing on the machine, or a needle and some yarn, like baker's twine, something like that. I'm going to show you how you can stitch your cover without having a sewing machine. If you don't have a sewing machine, I'll show you a really pretty way that you can stitch your cover. Let's see. Some adhesive of some kind. For my cover, I don't use a watery adhesive because it'll go through your fabric. I use usually my glue stick is what I use, because I'm going to stitch it anyway. All I want it to do is hold it together until I get it stitched. And then, like I said, your sewing machine or your needle and thread. That's the things that you're going to need this week. So, now I've already got week 2 up. Week 2 freebie up, so you can go over there and go ahead and download that. That's the pages. So it's all of your coffee dyed pages that you'll need. Now this is one of Betty's fabrics, and I do not remember. I want to call this one Pearl and Lace or Pearl and Roses. I don't remember the exact name, but I want to use this, and I want to get this rose on the front cover. So what I'm going to do is, let me grab my fabric scissors. I'm going to grab my ruler. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is, this has a little selvage right here, and I'm going to cut that off. And I just start the little cut, and hopefully this will tear. It's very, 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 very small piece, but it did. It tore. Okay. So we got that cut off, basically. There's a little bit right here, and I still want to get that cut, I think. I don't want any of that white on my cover, even though that'll probably be covered up. I still don't want it on there. And I have to excuse my shaky hands today. I've got shaky hands. This is my shaky hand day, I guess. All right, we got that. Now what I do is, I lay my piece out, And I know I want it 12 inches this way. This is the way my fabric is running, or the way my pattern is running, up and down. This is the top, the bottom. So I know I want my 12 inches this way because I want my journal about 5.5 or 5 3/4 wide. So I'm going to do 12 inches. All right, my 12 is going to come there, but I want to get this whole flower on my cover. So let's see. Let's go about right there maybe. So what I'm going to do is come down here, and I'm at the bottom, and I know you can't see that right this minute, but just hold on and I'll show you. I just cut me a little slit there, and I'm going to cut that off. Or I tear it off. I like to tear my fabric because I cannot cut fabric straight to save my life. If you can, go ahead and cut yours, but I cannot. So I'm just marking it, and then I'm coming down at the bottom and just making a little slit with my scissors, and then I'm tearing it. And don't throw away your extra pieces because we'll definitely use those in the journal. And if you don't have any fabric, then like I said, use what you have. Use what's in your stash. Use paper. Use a piece of faux leather. Use whatever you might have. But most everybody's got some kind of fabric, whether it be something that's just been laying in your stash for a long time, or an old t-shirt, or an old shirt that you don't wear anymore, something like that. Cut it up and use it. Definitely. All right, so this is 12 inches basically. I've got just a little bit on each side, and that's good. I like to have it a little bit larger than I need it, just in case I have to cut something off. Now, for the height of this, I usually cut my piece of material about 9 inches. So this has got a little divider right here, if you can see that. I'm going to cut that part off. It's right where that rose ends. So I'm just going to tear that off because I don't need that. Now, I'll tell you this, your fabric tears really, really good one way and not so good the other way. So be careful when you start to tear. If it starts going crooked, then just use your scissors and cut the best you can. This one actually tears pretty good both ways. All right, we have a rose there. Now, 9 inches is right there, right above the rose. So that's good enough for me, unless, let's see. And see, I think a little bit on mine. I do. Yeah, I think that's going to be good enough. I'm going to cut it right there, right across. And I'll cut it a little bit larger than the 9 because that gives me a little bit of wiggle room, because I have been known to cut them too small. Now, I know this looks way too little for a journal cover, but it's not one that I want to make. Like I said, I make most of mine 5.5 by 8.5 or something like that. 5.5 by 8 3/4, 5 3/4, somewhere around 5 by 9 or 6 by 9. So this is plenty big enough. You can make it any size that you want. So don't think that you have to make yours the same size as mine. Now when I fold this for my cover, that right there is what I'm going to get. So that's going to be my journal cover. Perfect. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay. Now, all I do now is I lay my cover out. I take the fabric that I'm going to use for inside, and in this case, I'm going to use a piece of this. This is an Kathy Holden fabric. I started to say Edith Holden, but it's Kathy Holden fabric that I've had in my stash for a little while. I love her fabrics. And I thought with this having all of the little words and everything in the background, this would be good on the inside. I take this and I lay it. Let me get just one layer so I don't cut both of them. I lay my cover on top of my inside. This is going to be the inside. And I just make sure that it's pretty well evened up. And then I tear it. Now this fabric tears really good one way, but the other way it doesn't. I remember that from using it before. And I'm thinking that this way it doesn't tear well, but we'll see. Okay. Oh, it tore well that way. That's okay. All right. So now I have my outside cover, and then this will be my inside cover. Just like that. And if your inside cover, if you think, oh, I cut it too short, it's a little bit short right here, don't worry about it. That's going to be okay. Doesn't matter. It does need to be a tiny bit narrower or shorter, or not as top. It does need to be a tiny bit smaller. So it's not going to hurt a thing if you got it a little bit smaller. We're still going to be able to use it. Not to worry. Okay. All right, lay that out like that. That looks good. So I'm going to lay this inside piece aside, and then I'm going to get my little bubble mailer here, and I'm going to lay this on my bubble mailer. And I'm going to go ahead, not with those scissors, I'm going to go ahead and cut my bubble mailer down. Now, I don't worry about this getting straight at all. I just make sure that it's smaller than my cover, because it doesn't really matter whether this is perfectly straight or not. So don't throw away those little bubble mailers. You can use them. Now I always make sure, I only put one layer in mine. Some people use both layers. I just use one. One is plenty thick enough for me. And I see that I cut that a little bit crooked, but we're going to see if it's going to work. Okay, let's lay it down. Lay our piece on here. See what we got. Yes, that's going to work perfect. Perfect, perfect. Now, as you can see, I lay this on here, and if I can see any of this bubble mailer anywhere around, I go ahead and trim that off a little, because I don't want my bubble mailer sticking outside my journal cover. So I'm going to trim it off just a fraction. A little bit that way. And let's see what we got here. When I fold it, it tells me if I've got it anywhere near straight. Alright, trim it off a little bit this way. I think that should work right there. Yes, that works perfectly. I don't see any of my bubble mailer anywhere around it. So that's going to work. Let me slide this down for you. I'm getting out of frame there. Okay, so then the next thing that I do is I take my glue stick, and if you'd rather use PVA glue or something like that, go ahead, use what you want, use what you have. I am just going to use this, and I just start out and I put my glue. I don't put my glue to the edges because you don't want this clogging up your sewing machine, and believe me, it will. Take it from somebody who's done it. Well, it clogs up your needle, not necessarily your sewing machine. So I basically put it in the middle. I put a good little layer there. I take my fabric and I lay it out, getting it as straight as I can. All right, and then I take my bone folder and I start in the middle and I just work that fabric outward. Alright, I'm going to look at it from the other side and see what I got. Looks good. I might trim just a tiny bit right here. I got a little bit more on this side than I do on this side, so I'm going to trim this back a tiny, tiny bit. Just don't want that bubble mailer sticking out. Even though I'll put lace and whatever around it, this just helps a little bit. Alright, that should work right there. Yeah, didn't take but a tiny, tiny bit. And see, that glue stick will hold it nice and flat until you get ready to stitch it. Okay. Now, if you want to put 2 layers of this bubble mailer in yours, that's up to you. Go ahead. But I just use one. One makes it nice and thick for me. See, once we get that inside cover, that's going to be nice and thick. And it's going to be nice and crunchy. All right, now your inside. Now make sure on your inside that you put it the right way up. So look at the outside. This is my up. I'm just going to make sure that my writing is the right way up. Believe me, I have put it upside down before and had to take it all apart. And it is not easy to take apart once you stitch. All right, that right there. I'm just going to have to be real careful over here and pull on that a little bit because I've got this inside piece a little tiny bit shorter. I think right here I'm going to take some of that off. Go ahead and trim now if you need to, because once you get this stitched together, it's harder to trim. And you may cut yours perfect the first time. I never do. I always have to trim mine down because I don't get it put down perfect. But that's okay. That's just the way it bounces. Okay. I'm going to trim this little edge off down here, because this is not going to be seen, so it doesn't have to look pretty. We just don't want it to be seen on the outside. I definitely would not want that blue showing on the outside. Alright, that trimmed off. I'm just going to lay this back on here again and give me another look. Oh yeah, I think that's going to work perfect right there. So again, I'm going to use my glue stick. Not going to go all the way to the edges, just gluing the middle part down. And believe it or not, this holds your cover very well. I've never had a problem with it. And I don't, people that I've sold them to have never told me that they've had a problem. I'm going to check one more time, make sure I got the right way up. And then I'm going to lay this down. There, right there. A little bit higher. Okay. As you can see, I got it a little bit off to one side, so we're going to do that one more time. It's the good thing about the glue stick. You can pull it right back up pretty quick without having any problems. Okay, again, I'm going to take my bone folder and I'm just going to run over that and push it from the middle out. Now, if it bothers you that, as you can see right here, if you look real close, you can see a little bit of that blue bubble mailer in there. If that bothers you, go ahead and put a piece of paper or something under there to cover that. It doesn't bother me because usually when I get everything decorated, nothing shows anyway. But some people might not want to do that way. All right. So basically, there is your cover without the stitching. And that's going to be how it looks right there. Nice and crunchy, as I say, as I call it. All right, I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch this cover on. I've got a little wrinkle right there. Let me get that out. There we go. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to have a smaller little journal cover, and I'm going to show you how you can hand stitch it and make it very pretty. So let me go to the sewing machine and stitch this one on, and I'm going to try my best to film it. The last time my film got corrupted and it didn't want to work, so hopefully this time I'll be able to get it uploaded for you guys. Okay, I'm hoping this is going to be enough light for you over here. I don't have a lot of light in this little corner that I'm in with my sewing machine, but I'm hoping that this is going to be enough. Now, I have my sewing machine threaded in brown thread. That's what I'm going to use. It's a very light brown, about like that. So that's what I'm going to use. And I like to start at the back bottom because my sewing machine likes to mess up with me just when I start. So starting that way, if something messes up, then I've got the possibility of getting it corrected. Now, when you put your pieces in your sewing machine, remember that your bottom side is a little bit shorter than the top. So I run mine over about 3/4 of an inch, my stitches. That leaves that little bit sticking out, and it makes sure that I grab everything, the bag, the bubble mailer, and this inside piece. So we're going to do a zigzag stitch, and I want my stitches to be kind of far apart. Let's see what we got here. Now, I don't back stitch on my covers because I usually come right back around and I stitch across that first stitch. And somebody said, well, how do you go straight? Well, I don't necessarily go straight. I just kind of look at my foot and I keep that material evened up with it as much as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, this is handmade. Now, I look up here at my corner and make sure that my corners are, all of my little pieces are even. Okay, I'm going to turn it with my needle to the left of my zigzag. I'm going to lift my pressure foot and turn it. That way, when it stitches, it's going to stitch back to the right, and that should give me a pretty neat corner. Remember to make sure that you're holding all of your layers. Okay, stop with it on the inside again. And this is going to be the front edge right here, so we're going to make sure that this is done pretty well. Just make sure that you don't have any bubbles back this way. Just smooth it out as best you can. Whoops. Get my little pressure foot where I need it. Now, I didn't tell you, but if you wanted to add lace to the inside to make your pockets and you wanted it stitched on, you could have gone ahead and put your lace down and stitched it as you went. I usually don't stitch my lace in like that. Sometimes I have done it before, and sometimes I get little bubbles in it, so I normally just glue my lace on if I put lace pockets. Now here I do backstitch just a little. That just holds my threads all together. And that is our cover stitched. As you can see, my sewing machine actually cooperated with me this time. It usually stitches very well until I get on camera and then it messes up. This time, pretty good. Okay, let's go back and I'll show you how to hand stitch this. Makes it very pretty too. Okay, we have our large cover stitched together. As you can see, it's got the little zigzag stitches all the way around it. And I went ahead and folded that up for the time being. And I went ahead and took my scraps that I had left over and I made a little small journal. This is going to be just a little accompanying journal I will send with that. So this one I cut, and you can cut it any size that you want. I just used what scraps I had. I don't even think it's a particular size. Let's see. Well, it's 8.5 wide is my fabric, and then it's almost 4.5 tall. So that will make a little 4 by 4, maybe. Yeah, that'll make a little 4 by 4.25, something like that, little journal. So that's going to be plenty big enough. It's good size. I put it together the same way I did the large one. I put my bubble mailer in there and then put my pieces on the inside. Now I have some, this is like some of that cotton embroidery thread, I guess you could call it. It's 6 ply. And this is in brown, and I thought that would look good on there. So I'm going to cut off a good chunk of that. And then I have a needle that it's sharp on the end and it has a big eye. That's what you need for something like this. And I like mine a little bit longer than regular needles because I can't hold on to little bitty needles. Now we're going to separate this, I think. Let me see. Do I want to leave it? Sometimes I leave it, sometimes I separate it. I'm not sure. Let's see if it does have 6 ply. Yes, it does. Okay, let's separate it. Sometimes the 6 ply is too bulky looking. It doesn't look well. So to separate your yarn or your thread, all you need to do is start in the middle and pull on it. And then I usually hold this in my teeth, believe it or not. Or I have somebody else hold it. And you can pull it right apart. So I've got 3 ply here and 3 ply there. Plus this makes your thread go a lot longer. I got out my little threaders, but I don't think I'm going to need them. Okay, let's lay the threaders aside. And then we're going to put a knot in the bottom. And I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way. By licking my finger, believe it or not, and I put the little knot there, and it makes a smaller knot, and then I just cut the little tail off. But you can do it the way where you, and I don't even know if I know how to do this or not, the quilting way where you wrap it around and pull it through. You can make a knot any way that you can. That's just a small thing. All right. Now, I think I'll start on the bottom back again. And I'm going to stick this through. Now, I will tell you that going through your little mailer, it's going to be a little bit tougher than going through just regular. Now, my knot is so tiny, I'm not going to worry about it. But if you didn't want your knot to show, you can always pull it to the inside. Start on the inside first and let your knot be on the inside. Mine is teeny tiny, so I'm not going to worry about it. Now, there's different ways to make stitches on the edge of pieces like this. Let me think of which one I want to make for you guys. Okay, and truthfully, I do not know what these stitches are called. I've done them many, many years ago with my mom, but I couldn't tell you now what they're called. This one looks like a little chicken scratch. It looks like a chicken foot. You start with your thread. When you bring your needle up, this thread needs to be on the back side of that needle where you brought it up. And then when you catch that, as you can see, let me get that out. As you can see, it makes a little, let's see if you can see that. See, I've caught my thread right here, and I want to pull it back. And it's hard to tell a lot with just the first couple of stitches. And I go in with my stitches about maybe 5/8 of an inch. Or 3/8, something like that. You can do it right on the edge if you want. But I find that it pulls out if you do it very much closer than this. And just try to get your stitches pretty well in line. They don't have to be perfect, remember. And I always do, I hold the top up toward me. That way if the back, see the back is not going to look as pretty. But it's still going to be fine. Alright, and then go ahead and pull. And see how you've started. You've got a little, it's hard for me to show this. You got a little row of stitches there that are all attached together. And somebody out there that does a lot of this stuff will know what this is called, but I can't remember to the life to save me. But I cannot remember. So if anybody knows what this is called, just go ahead and leave it below. I know how to do them, I just don't know what they're called. So see, I'm holding my thread back here with my thumb, bringing my needle up somewhat in line with the stitch before, and I have mine a little bit further apart. Now you might want to put yours closer together. It doesn't really matter. You do it the way you like for it to look. And don't pull real tight on this, because if you pull real tight on it, everything's going to pucker. You're going to get a big old pucker, and that's not going to look good. But see, it's sealing off that edge. Now this is just one stitch that you can use on the edge. You can use many, many more. Okay, I just went ahead and stitched down through there. And you can see mine are not perfect. They don't have to be. This is hand stitched. Now when you get to the corner, all I do is just, I anchor that last one down, and you anchor it by just going on the outside of the one you just stitched. So see, that anchors it. And then I just start my next row. But I think I am going to do the bottom in a different stitch, and I'll just show you another stitch. So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to tie this off on the inside just for now. Just a little bit. There we go. It's tied off good enough. Because who knows, I may put lace down through there. And you can see that this side just looks like regular stitching. But that side, the outside, looks like that. And see, I need to put another stitch right up here. It's harder to do this when I'm having to show it on camera, because I like to hold my stitching real close to me. It's hard to hold it close to you when you're on camera, because I use my belly a lot too. Okay, now another way to keep this thread from tangling up on you is you can run it through a little bit of wax if you want. Just a candle. You can just use a candle. Run it over the wax a little bit. Alright, so let's see. This is the bottom. Let's just do the bottom a little bit different. So I'm going to start, since I've got kind of a big knot in this one, I'm going to start with my knot on the inside. And all I'm doing is just going through that layer right there of the bubble wrap, and then up through the top, and that closes my knot inside there. And then I'll go ahead and just put my one single stitch in there just to hold that. Okay, now let's see. Now you can do just plain stitching, just back and forth. Just, the only way I know to tell you to do this is just do it. So if you want to just do loop stitches, you can do that too. Just loop it like this. And I may, who knows, I may take this out if I do send it with my little journal. Because I just need to show you right now how to do this. See, this is just looping. All we're doing is just looping from one side to the other. So I'm going up through the bottom and then just looping it over. And I move down a little bit each time. Now my hand stitching is not as good as a lot of people's because my hand shakes so much. But there's tons of hand stitching videos out there that you can watch if you want to get some different ideas. But you can hand stitch your journal edges. And see mine are not perfect, but it's just a little bit of hand stitching on the edge. Now that's just the loop over and over. Now, if you had rather not take it across the edge and you just want to do a little running stitch, you can do that too. You may have to do the punch method. I don't know how easy this is going to be to do the running stitch on. Because with that bubble mailer on the inside, it's a little bit harder. But you just poke it down through and push it back up. Just keep your stitches pretty close together. They don't have to be perfect. Again, my mother could get her stitches so close and so precise that you would have thought a sewing machine did it. She made quilts for a living, and her stitching was perfect. Mine has always been, she said mine was like where you could hang your toenail on it. Alright, there's just a run-in stitch. You can do that. But that just gives you some ideas on some fun ways to do your hand stitching on your journal cover. So you can do the little whip stitch, you can do the straight stitch, or you can do this, which I'm not sure exactly what it's called. But any of those, or you can just stab it, just push it down through, pull it up, push it down through, pull it up. Or you can do a zigzag if you want to draw you out some zigzags and then just stab your zigzags. You can do that too. Just remember to use a thicker thread, not just the plain sewing thread, but this is like an embroidery thread, and a larger eyed needle, and then one that has a sharp point on it if you're going to go through all of your bubble mailer, because it is a little bit tougher to go through that plastic. But that is the basics of your hand stitching. Alright guys, I think that is all we're going to do on the journal cover. We've got that taken care of. We'll come back and we will have our pages printed off and all of these cut out, and then we will start doing the second part, which is inserting the pages, getting the pages together, and all of that. We'll talk to you guys later. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you for joining in on our Just Journal January. And it's hashtag Just Journal January if you want to make sure that you put that on anything that you're sharing on our Facebook page, your Facebook page, Instagram. Just make sure that you include that, and we will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.